Hey, Wooddale Senior High family, thanks for joining us for Church at Home, our new way of doing church when we can't meet in person, which I hope does not last very long. This morning I was thinking about what fear looks like in our lives. I know from talking to a few of you that fear during this time especially is very real. We don't know how long it's going to last, we don't know how it's going to affect us, and in the midst of that we can have some fears. I just want to tell you that fear is okay. I remember a couple months ago, I was getting ready for bed. I was in my room in Colorado, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this giant mouse run across the floor. And I hate creepy crawly, like snakes, mice, all that stuff. And so I ran upstairs and I told my roommate Jordan, I was like, dude, can you come down and get this mouse for me? And he's like, dude, you're a giant human being and there's this tiny mouse. Why can't you just catch it? And I was like, dude, just please come down, get this mouse. And so he did. He's a good friend. He came down and caught the mouse for me. And he showed me the mouse, and it was actually just this tiny little baby mouse. But it freaked me out. I hate creepy crawly things. That is one of my biggest fears. And I don't know what fear looks like for you. Maybe fear is something that happens when you're thinking about your classes and will you pass or will you not pass. Maybe it's being rejected by a friend group, or maybe it's not making a sports team. We all have our own fears. And in the midst of that, it can be really hard to not let fear control us. That's when it becomes dangerous, when it starts to control our lives, when it starts to make us isolate ourselves because we fear being rejected, or maybe it's avoiding people because we're scared of what they'll think of us, or maybe we fear actually talking about what's going on in our lives because people might not understand, or they might reject us because of what's going on in our lives. But we all experience fear in some sort of way. And now it's going to get a little dark, but we'll talk through this. There's one fear that connects all of our fears, and that's the fear of death. And I'm not talking about physical death per se, but I'm saying that the fear of death connects all of our fears because we are all scared of something coming to an end, something good coming to an end. And it might be that we fear being ourselves around people because people might not like us, and that relationship could come to an end because if people actually knew the real us, maybe they would reject us. Or maybe we fear not getting into the college that we hope to, and that fear, that dream college doesn't happen. And that is our fear that something good might come to an end, that something good might not happen. And that is the fear that connects all of our fears. And as we head into Easter, as we look at the hope that's found in Jesus, we can find a hope and a peace in the midst of our fears. And we're going to talk about that a little bit this morning. And I was looking at just the story of Paul's life in the Bible. And Paul experienced a lot when he was going around and spreading the hope of the gospel. And he experienced a shipwreck. He experienced being in prison. He experienced being beaten and mocked. And that didn't stop Paul. I'm sure he had fears, but it didn't stop Paul from moving forward with the mission that God had for his life. And it's actually really cool in 1 Corinthians 15, he writes this, and he says, "Death is swallowed up in victory." He says, "Oh death, where is your victory? Oh death, where is your sting?" He's looking at the story of Jesus and how Jesus was beaten and crucified and killed in our place. And then 3 days later, rose from the dead and defeated death. And what a cool thing for us to look at. And Paul saying, "Death, where is your sting? Death, you can't stop us." That we don't have to fear because Jesus conquered death when he rose from the grave. He left death there, and we have no reason to live in fear because of that. And we don't have to let fear control our lives. I love what Paul says later, and he says it in Romans. He says, "The Spirit of God who raised Jesus from the dead lives in you." That the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead lives in us if we are in a relationship with Jesus. And we can look at our lives and we can look at the situation, we can say, yeah, I have some fears, I feel fear, fear is real, but fear doesn't have to control me. That fear doesn't have to change how I live. Fear doesn't have to change how I interact with people. Fear doesn't have to change who I am. Because in the midst of all this, when it comes down to it, we are sons and daughters of God. And that same God, the same Spirit of God lives in us. And the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead lives in us. And we can say, death, you have no power. Fear, you have no power in our lives because of what Jesus did. And so as we head into Easter, as we look at a new way of doing church and all these things that are happening in our lives, we can say, I might feel fear, but fear has no power in our lives. I'm looking forward to posting more videos like this. There will be discussion questions posted. I hope you can go through those with your life groups or with your families and dig deeper into this during this time where we're having to be around our families a lot more. But until next time, Senior High family, peace out.